Time has forgotten these stars, but so has death. They were born long before television existed, in a world still unfamiliar with today's technology, and yet somehow they are still here, standing strong against the tides of time. A legendary dancer is now 99 years old but still dances better than most people in their 30s. A glamorous actress has just turned 100 and still remembers working with Marlon Brando as if it were only yesterday. Meanwhile, a beloved television dad has celebrated his 100th birthday and even amazed fans by dancing on a desk on live TV just last year. From World War II to the rise of TikTok, they have witnessed all the greatest changes in the world. And unlike many of their famous contemporaries who left too soon, they have lived to tell these extraordinary stories. Their enduring presence and unbreakable spirit have turned them into living legends, a shining testament that talent, perseverance, and passion can transcend the limits of age and time. If you're curious about the story we're about to tell, leave a comment with the number 1. If not, leave a comment with the number 0. Don't forget to hit like, share this video, and leave your thoughts in the comments section below. Make sure to subscribe to the channel so you don't miss any more exciting videos. Now let's dive into the story together. Dick Van Dyke was born in 1925 and is now 99 years old. He has remained strong for over 70 years. He has made people laugh, sing, and smile. His energy, humor, and love for performing have made him one of the most beloved stars in Hollywood. Whether he was dancing on rooftops or telling jokes on TV, people loved watching him. His big break came on Broadway in the late 1950s. Then, in 1960, he landed a role in Bye Bye Birdie, earning him a Tony Award. That moment changed everything. Suddenly, everyone wanted to see more of Dick Van Dyke. He had a playful, light-hearted style, but he was also clever. You never knew what he would do next, but you always knew it would be something wonderful. Soon after, he became a familiar face on television. From 1961 to 1966, he starred as Rob Petrie on The Dick Van Dyke Show, a massive success. He worked alongside Mary Tyler Moore, and together, they became one of television's most beloved couples. He wasn't just funny, he was a genius at physical comedy. A look, a stumble, and he had the whole country laughing. He won 3 Emmy Awards for that show. It wasn't just about the jokes. It was about how he moved, how he reacted, and how he made everything look effortless. But Van Dyke didn't stop at TV. In 1964, he starred as Bert in Mary Poppins, lighting up the big screen with his dancing, singing, and charm. Even though people poked fun at his British accent, it didn't matter. He became unforgettable. Not long after, someone even offered him the role of James Bond. He laughed and said, "Have you heard my British accent?" That honesty only made people love him more. In 1968, he starred as Caractacus Potts in Chitty Chitty Bang Bang, a colorful story about a magical car, and Van Dyke made it even more magical. As the years passed, he kept working tirelessly. In the 1970s, he returned to television with the new Dick Van Dyke Show. In the 1990s, he starred in Diagnosis, Murder. He also appeared in films like Dick Tracy and Night at the Museum. At 93, he danced and sang once again in Mary Poppins Returns, proving he still had that spark. Even approaching 100 years old, Van Dyke hardly slowed down. In 2024, on his 99th birthday, he revealed he was in talks with a studio about a new role, joking that he might play someone's grandfather just to stay busy. By April 2025, he had to cancel some events because traveling and meeting large crowds had become too difficult. When asked what he was doing now, he simply smiled and said, "I feel old," while still keeping that trademark humor that has endeared him to generations. Eva Marie Saint did not start her career in the spotlight. She was born on July 4, 1924, in Newark, New Jersey, far from the glitz of Hollywood. After college, she was not immediately thrust into fame. She began with small jobs, working as a messenger at NBC, and working hard in New York. She took every opportunity she could to act on radio and television in the late 1940s. Even before most people knew her name, she was already being called the Helen Hayes of television. She had talent, and insiders recognized it very early on. Her big break came in 1954 with her very first film role in On the Waterfront, a movie that became a classic, where she starred opposite Marlon Brando. Most actors would dream of such an opportunity, but Eva not only delivered a strong performance, she won an Academy Award for her debut role. She was paid only $7,500 for that part, but the impact it had on her career was priceless. The film was not only powerful on screen, behind the scenes, it was filled with tension. Director Elia Kazan used psychological techniques to draw out genuine emotional performances, intentionally creating tension between her and Brando. Eva never stuck to just one type of role. In 1959, she worked with Alfred Hitchcock on North by Northwest. Hitchcock wanted to completely transform her image. He personally took her shopping, chose her wardrobe, and coached her to lower her voice to make her presence more mysterious and stylish. He even instructed her to maintain eye contact with Cary Grant in every scene to project elegance and authority. That performance became one of the most iconic moments of her career. Eva never chased fame. She chose her projects carefully, appearing in only about 20 films throughout her long career. She starred in serious dramas like Exodus and A Hatful of Rain, as well as lighter films like The Russians Are Coming, The Russians Are Coming. She even appeared in Superman Returns in 2006, playing Ma Kent, while archival footage of Brando, her very first co-star, was used for Superman's father. It was a perfect full-circle moment, reflecting a long and meaningful journey. Outside of the spotlight, Eva Marie Saint lived a full life with her husband, Jeffrey Hayden, whom she married in 1951 and stayed with for 65 years until his passing. In 2021, she officially retired from acting at the age of 97. At 100 years old, she is not only the oldest living Oscar winner, but also a living link to the golden age of cinema. Mel Brooks was born in 1926, and nearly a century later, he's still making people laugh. At 98 years old, he's not just a legend. He's a living part of comedy history. He is one of the very few people in the world to have won an Emmy, a Grammy, an Oscar, and a Tony. And just when you think he has done it all, he received an honorary Oscar in 2024. His career has been like a never-ending highlight reel. It all began in the early days of television, when he was a young comedy writer working on Your Show of Shows, one of the most important TV programs of its time. He wasn't alone. He was surrounded by future giants like Neil Simon and Woody Allen. The jokes flew faster than the cameras could even keep up. It was also during that time that he met Carl Reiner, forming a friendship that would lead to one of the greatest comedic acts ever, The 2,000-Year-Old Man. What started as a private joke between friends turned into best-selling comedy albums, eventually helping Brooks win a Grammy. At one point, those albums were the only thing keeping him financially afloat after he faced bankruptcy. But his sharp wit and humor always paid the bills. Brooks didn't stop there. He turned a wild idea, a musical comedy about Hitler, into The Producers. Somehow it worked. He not only won an Oscar for it, but later turned it into a Broadway smash hit, breaking records. Most people create one version of a story and move on. Brooks managed to turn the same story into a success both on film and on stage. The 1970s were his golden decade. In 1974, he released Blazing Saddles and Young Frankenstein, two classic comedies in the same year. One tackled racism in the Old West with a joke-a-minute pace. The other was a black-and-white love letter to classic monster movies, with Gene Wilder shining in both films. Brooks wasn't just behind the camera. In Blazing Saddles, he played 5 different roles, some uncredited. That was the kind of wild energy he brought to everything he touched. But Brooks was about more than just laughs. He quietly founded Brooks Films, a company that produced serious, powerful films like The Elephant Man and The Fly. He deliberately kept his name off the credits because he knew that if audiences saw Mel Brooks, they would expect comedy. He didn't want that expectation to distract from the serious nature of the stories. That level of self-awareness is rare, especially in the entertainment business. His personal life was just as remarkable. Brooks was married to actress Anne Bancroft for 41 years, something almost unheard of in Hollywood. Their home was always full of laughter, even during awkward moments. Once, their son Max showed up at a dinner party dressed as an SS officer just to push Brooks' buttons. Brooks was horrified, but Bancroft calmly looked at Max and said, "Max, nice epaulets." That kind of wit ran through the whole family. Max, by the way, became a successful writer himself, authoring World War Z. Even nearing 100, Brooks continued working. In 2021, he released his memoir. In 2023, he returned with History of the World, Part 2 on Hulu, more than 40 years after the original film. He even voiced characters in major films like Toy Story 4 and continued making appearances on television shows. He remains vibrant, hilarious, and, most importantly, still unmistakably Mel Brooks. The life of James Hong is a story you don't hear every day. He was born in 1929 in Minneapolis, Minnesota, to a family of Chinese immigrants. His father ran an herb shop, and it was there that young James first glimpsed a world of performance, watching curious opera artists with wide-eyed wonder. He was supposed to become an engineer. He even earned a degree from USC, but he was never truly passionate about it. In 1953, he decided to take a leap and headed straight to Hollywood. But Hollywood back then was not kind to people who looked like James. White actors often played Asian characters in makeup, and real roles for Asian Americans were rare, bland, or outright offensive. James saw that reality, and instead of waiting, he carved his own path. He partnered with actor Mako Iwamatsu and founded East West Players, a theater group created solely for Asian American actors. It wasn't just about acting, it was about survival, about creating space in a world that didn't want to give any. At one point, 70% of Asian American actors in Hollywood had ties to East West Players. That's how deep his impact was. His acting career took off in the 1950s with a series of supporting roles alongside Hollywood legends like Clark Gable and John Wayne. They weren't leading roles, but they opened doors, and James kept walking through them. Year after year, show after show, movie after movie, he kept working. Some years he appeared on television 10 times, each time playing a completely different character. Then came the 1980s, and James's status changed. If you've seen Big Trouble in Little China, you'll remember Lo Pan, the ghostly villain with wild eyes and a dark sense of humor. That was James. Just a few years earlier, he appeared in Blade Runner as the man who created the replicant's eyes. It was a small role, but James made it unforgettable. From horror to sci-fi, comedy to drama, he left his mark. He also appeared in Tales from the Dark Side and famously played the chaotic maitre d' in the Chinese restaurant episode of Seinfeld. People didn't always know his name, but they always remembered his face, and especially his voice. That voice became iconic. In Mulan, he was the rigid advisor Chi Fu. In Kung Fu Panda, he voiced Po's lovable noodle-making father. When Kung Fu Panda released a holiday special, his performance earned him an Annie Award. Even into his 90s, James continued lending his voice to major films like Turning Red and Wendell and Wild in 2022. And that same year, something miraculous happened. At 93, James starred in Everything Everywhere All at Once, surrounded by an incredible cast. His performance was both fresh and timeless. The film swept awards season, and so did James. The Screen Actors Guild honored the entire cast, and James stood proudly on that stage, proving he was still at the peak of his career. Then something long overdue finally happened. James Hong received a star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame. He became the oldest person ever to receive the honor. There were lion dancers, big speeches, and heartfelt moments. Jamie Lee Curtis gave a speech. Daniel Day Kim, who led the campaign for James's star, proudly stood beside him. It wasn't just about James getting a star. It was about what he represented. Decades of persistence, resilience, and refusal to be forgotten. James Hong has always been candid about his early years in Hollywood, taking on countless stereotypical roles as Chinese characters. But he turned those small parts into stepping stones. He never stopped moving forward. And he didn't just open doors for himself, he opened them for others. As a member of the Academy, he continues to advocate for young Asian American and Pacific Islander talent, reminding the world that the work is far from done. Even into his 90s, he hasn't slowed down. He's currently producing a new film called Patsy Lee and the Keepers of the Five Kingdoms. He's still working, still creating, still dreaming. As Jamie Lee Curtis said best during the ceremony, "It's about time." And she was right. James Hong gave everything to Hollywood. And finally, Hollywood gave back. If you find this story interesting and want to learn more, don't forget to hit like, share this video with your friends and those around you. Leave a comment below to let us know your thoughts. And make sure to subscribe to the channel so you don't miss any other exciting videos. Now, let's move on to the next character. Elizabeth Waldo was born in 1918 in Yakima, Washington, near the Yakima Indian Reservation. By the age of 3, she could sing. By 5, she was playing the violin. Her talent was evident early on, and famed violinist Jascha Heifetz recognized it, helping her earn a scholarship to the Curtis Institute of Music in Philadelphia, where she received classical training. In 1940, her life took a dramatic turn. Conductor Leopold Stokowski invited her to join the All-American Youth Orchestra. Touring across North and South America, Elizabeth encountered traditional music from cultures she had never experienced before, lighting a fire within her. She began collecting ancient instruments and developed a passion for preserving the music of long-past civilizations. When the orchestra disbanded during World War II, she briefly joined the Los Angeles Philharmonic, but soon set her sights beyond. She traveled to Mexico, where her music found a new rhythm. She performed on national radio, collaborated with beloved singer Agustin Lara, and met muralist Diego Rivera, who encouraged her to compose music for pre-Columbian instruments, music that had never been written down before. In 1945, Elizabeth entered the Hollywood scene, appearing as a violinist in Song of Mexico. Her sister, Janet Waldo, had been discovered by Bing Crosby, opening doors for Elizabeth to perform in orchestras for Crosby's films. She later worked with renowned composers like Maurice Jarre and Lalo Schifrin, even contributing to the emotional depth of Dr. Zhivago. By the late 1950s, Elizabeth Waldo released groundbreaking albums like Maracatu, Rite of the Pagan and Realm of the Incas, using ancient instruments that had never before been recorded in a studio. These works didn't just recreate the past, they created something entirely new. Jazz producer Gene Norman called the experience unforgettable. Waldo continued to innovate. In the 1970s, she composed for films like Chac, Dios de la Via, and Lost on Paradise Island. In the 1980s, her curiosity turned toward Chinese music, and she formed a Pan-Asian band that performed across Los Angeles and even toured China. Her Concierto Indo-Americano was performed with the Xi'an Symphony Orchestra, again bridging worlds through music. Elizabeth Waldo also believed deeply in education. She founded Rancho Cordillera del Norte, a cultural center in Northridge, California, complete with a 150-seat theater where she hosted concerts and taught multicultural music. She also founded the New Mission Theater to celebrate global arts. Even as she grew older, her passion never faded. In the 2000s, she released albums like Land of Golden Dreams and Heartstrings, Soul of the Americas. At 97, she was still composing a work about Chinese immigrants during the gold rush. Now, at 106 years old, Elizabeth Waldo stands as one of the last living links to the golden age of Hollywood. But her legacy reaches far beyond that. She didn't just perform music. She preserved it, transformed it, and used it to connect people across continents and centuries. Jacqueline White was born in Beverly Hills in 1922. For a brief time during the 1940s, she lit up the Hollywood screen with her quiet strength and graceful beauty. Now over 100 years old, she remains one of the last surviving individuals who lived and worked during Hollywood's golden age. Her time in the spotlight was short, about 10 years. But her performances still speak to anyone who loves classic cinema, especially the dark, gritty world of film noir. Jacqueline's entry into acting was almost accidental. At 17 years old, while performing in a UCLA theater class, she was discovered by a casting director. That small moment changed everything. Shortly after, she landed screen tests and signed a contract with MGM in 1942. Despite her talent and beauty, MGM didn't give her many major roles, like many young contract actresses at the time. She mostly found herself in supporting parts while MGM focused on their bigger names. Those early roles still helped her develop her skills. She appeared in several studio films, including the comedy Air Raid Wardens with Laurel and Hardy, Song of Russia, and Three Hearts for Julia. In 1947, Jacqueline left MGM and joined RKO Pictures. There, she finally started receiving roles that truly showcased what she could do. She was cast in major supporting roles and even starred in smaller productions. These were her finest years in the industry. One of her standout performances was in Crossfire, a film that bravely tackled heavy topics like anti-Semitism. That same year, she took on a lighter role in Banjo and later appeared in the action film Mystery in Mexico. In the Western Return of the Bad Men, she worked with Randolph Scott, whom she later remembered fondly as a kind and respectful gentleman of the West. The film that cemented her legacy was The Narrow Margin, released in 1952, a tense, low-budget black-and-white noir that became a masterpiece. Ironically, by the time she was offered the role, Jacqueline had already stepped away from Hollywood. She had married Bruce Anderson in 1948 and moved to Wyoming, believing her acting career was behind her. During a short visit back to Los Angeles, she ran into director Richard Fleischer and producer Stanley Rubin at a food stand on the RKO lot. That chance encounter brought her back for one final film. Even that film had its own drama. After it was completed, RKO's new owner, Howard Hughes, shelved it for 2 years, uncertain whether to reshoot it with bigger stars. In the end, only a few scenes were reshot, and the final film was released almost entirely intact. The Narrow Margin proved worth the wait. Critics praised its tight story and suspenseful atmosphere, and to this day, the film maintains a perfect score on Rotten Tomatoes. And so, Jacqueline White quietly left Hollywood at the age of 28. She chose family over fame. While others chased roles and the spotlight, Jacqueline built a private life, raising 5 children in Wyoming and remaining married to her husband for over 50 years until his passing in 2000. But their long life together told its own story, a story of quiet commitment and a deep sense of true priorities. In her later years, Jacqueline White rarely made public appearances. Occasionally, she attended film festivals, where younger audiences discovered her work for the first time. Seeing her in person reminded people that the golden age of Hollywood wasn't just something to read about. It was real, lived by real people. And Jacqueline White was one of the few who could still tell those stories firsthand. At 102, she is not just a fading memory from the past. She remains a living link to the most magical era of Hollywood. Her films, especially The Narrow Margin, have found new audiences across generations. Her performances continue to stand out for their quiet honesty. She didn't need long speeches or flashy scenes. Just a look, a simple line, and you believed every emotion she conveyed. In a world where careers are often measured by their length, Jacqueline White proved that sometimes a brief, brilliant moment can leave the deepest impression. If you find this story fascinating and want to see more exciting videos, don't forget to hit like. Share this video with your friends and everyone around you, and leave a comment below to let us know what you think. And make sure to subscribe to the channel so you won't miss any other amazing videos. Thank you for watching until the end, and we'll see you in the next video.